What's up, YouTube? Back with another one. And today we got something very important to talk about. Okay, I might take you guys back to school on this one. So I hope you guys enjoy. So we can really get to understand some of these things that's going on all around us. Okay, so I'm gonna start today by talking about inflation and how that is affecting our economy, especially now during this time during the pandemic, and how our economy is basically in a standstill, and why inflation is such an important thing, and why people should know what is actually going on when it comes to monetary situations just happening in the U.S. Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys a textbook definition of what inflation is, and then I'm gonna give you an example of a country that went through hyperinflation, and then correlate that with exactly what's going on with the US. Okay, so we're gonna do all that. All right, so here it goes. Inflation is a quantitative measure of the rate at which the average price level of a basket of selected goods and service in an economy increases over time. The unit of currency buys less than what it did in prior years. Okay, so basically, that is saying that over time, when you print out so much currency that has no backing, so like our currency, right, it's called fiat currency. So the US dollar, fiat currency, is paper currency. It's not really backed by anything. It's only backed by faith. Okay, it's only backed by the belief that this money can actually buy something. So yeah, basically our monetary policy, the backing of our currency by gold was abolished years ago, okay, by Nixon. And he got rid of the gold standard. Which the gold standard, we basically had to have 40% gold backing a dollar, every single dollar, okay? So it made it harder for the government to basically print out as much money as they need to basically fund whatever they want to do, to fund any measures that they wanted to do. Maybe they wanted to kind of get the economy back and rolling, right? Like what they're doing today, they want to get the economy back and rolling, right? So they're printing out as much money as they can, okay? So basically, they got rid of the gold standard so they can actually print out more money. And instead of having to have 40% gold to back up the currency, because there's only a specific amount of gold on Earth. There's not, you can't make gold out of anything. I think there's about only 6 trillion amounts, like 6 trillion worth of gold out in the world as of today. So, it would make it extremely hard for you to, print out more money if you needed it to be backed by gold. But okay, so what it's talking about is basically when you print out so much currency, right? When there's so much currency that you have available, that basically that it decreases the value of that currency. So if you're printing out trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars of that currency, with no backing, over time, it basically, the value of it decreases, and you can't buy the same amount of goods you could previously, because the value of that decreases, and it seems like the value of goods are also increasing. So you actually need more currency to buy the goods that you need. So you need more of that money to buy a loaf of bread. Okay, so if you could buy a loaf of bread for $1 last year, this year it's because we have inflation every single year. Okay, you would probably need $1.50 to buy that same loaf of bread, or you might need $2 to buy that same loaf of bread. Okay, but yeah, so that's what it's telling you. So goods increases, the value of our money decreases. So maybe in the future you might need a whole wheelbarrow of cash to go buy some can of soup or something. So I mean, that's literally what happens with inflation over a period of time. And nobody really wants to tell you guys about this or show you the history of why this happens, and how this actually leads to the downfall of many economies and many countries and many civilizations. Okay, monetary policies, money it always has an effect with what's going on in a society. So basically, I'm gonna talk to you guys about a country that basically had one of the worst cases of hyperinflation, and that is Zimbabwe. Okay, so Zimbabwe, the national government increased the money supply in response to the rising nation's debt, and also the decline in the economic output and exports. All right. So basically in Zimbabwe, they pretty much had I would say a corrupt government. And with that, they had a high national debt, just as the U.S. does. We're 25 trillion in debt. But with them, they actually thought that they can actually print out as much money as they need with no backing to basically pay off that debt, which is not possible, because the more money you're printing, the less it's becoming, like the less, like it's becoming worth less every time you print out a lot of money. Okay, so the more that you're printing, the worth of the money it's less than what it was. Okay, so you're trying to print out $25 trillion to pay off a debt. By the time you print out the $25 trillion, it's not going to be worth $25 trillion. It's going to be worth like less and less and less and less. So you're not going to be able to pay off the debt because your money's not worth anything, and nobody will value your money or see it as something that is good to give out goods and services or to pay off debts. Okay, so that's what they tried to do. And also they had a decline in the economic output, right? As we do now, because we're in this virus situation, our economic output has severely declined because, we're all in a quarantine period where nobody really can go to work. Jobs was closed. You weren't outputting as much, right? Obviously for the past 3 months. And when the economy in the country is stagnant for 3 months, that really hurts. Like, that really hurts the country, like more than people know. So our output has actually severely decreased, and also our our exports. Okay, so because of that, our situation really mirrors Zimbabwe's situation, but ours is kind of a little different because our currency is basically the reserve currency for pretty much all the countries. Okay, so the U.S. dollar is a reserve currency for pretty much all countries. So like China, Russia, they keep it on reserve basically to be able to trade and stuff, because I don't know why. I guess we're the superpower. And but most countries are trying to get away from the U.S. dollar being the reserve currency, because currency dies. Okay, so currency does become less valuable. It becomes worthless. So they're getting out of basically currency, having the U.S. be the reserve currency, and going into gold and silver, because gold and silver never loses value. It might lose value compared to U.S. dollars when you're comparing it to their chart or whatever, but we all know that's not really real. Gold and silver has been around for the longest of times, and their value is something that when the economy is doing bad, or the fiat currency isn't doing so well, it's losing purchasing power, gold and silver tend to increase, but they're not really increasing because of some kind of just like some kind of increase in their, like, they're not really increasing like you think. They're only really increasing because it takes more of the dollar to purchase the gold. So because it's less, the dollar is less valuable. So it's taking more of that dollar to purchase the gold. And that's why it looks like it's increasing, but it's really only a store of purchasing power. I hope that makes sense to you guys when you're listening. Okay. So basically, tie that into, that's just one country, Zimbabwe. We have other countries that are going through a lot of economic pains, honestly, that most people don't know, especially when you try to drop your interest rate to negative, to the negative, like the U.S. is trying to do, like Trump is trying to say that's the correct move, which is not. That literally tells you that our economy isn't doing so good. Okay, so we'll talk about negative interest rates in another video, but it's really not a good thing when you're punishing people for saving their money in their accounts, or they have to basically owe you an interest rate for them saving their money in their account, or you're trying to increase funding by so much because nobody is doing anything. There's no output in the economy, nobody's spending money, so you're trying to force people to spend their money. Okay, this country, the world revolves around people spending their money. That's why people got to know, like, people who spend their money are actually just as important as people who save their money, because if they don't, we actually wouldn't be in a prosperous nation as we are. Okay, so basically, yeah, so that's what inflation is. We go by 2% inflation, every year. That's what they say. But at this point, it's probably more than that. So that's why I've kind of briefly talked about a savings account and basically investing. So with your savings account, right? I'm gonna tie it all in. So with your savings account, you have a 2% interest rate, right? But if our inflation is 2% every single year, your money is losing value by 2% every year, and you have an interest, your money in your savings account interest rate as 2%. So they're negating each other because one's increasing by 2 and one's decreasing by 2. So it's negating each other, and your money is actually just staying the same, which isn't bad because you're still keeping the purchasing power of your money. But that's only if inflation is by 2% a year. Okay, so supposedly that's what they say. It's probably higher than what people think. And nowadays, because of the Fed printing out so much money, and they drop interest rate to 0, so the banks can basically loan out their money, and so the Federal Reserve can basically give more money to the banks because they don't have to hold any reserve, any 10% reserve, of cash to get money from the Federal Reserve. So basically, they just it's a free for all. So jobs can take loans that they don't really have to pay back as soon as possible. They can, with no interest. People are getting stimulus checks. They're printing out so much money, like trillions upon trillions of dollars. We're having another stimulus, like a HERO Act stimulus, that's basically worth like $3 trillion. That's how much you're going to print so they can give money to people. I'm not saying it's a bad thing necessarily, but you got to be mindful of what happens when you're printing out so much money in a society like that. It loses its value, and people don't like to see that. They just think that everything is going to be okay. The government should provide for me at all times, when that's not the case. You got to provide for yourself, really, and you got to be smart with what you do. Everybody's going to go through hard times. The stimulus check definitely helps for sure, but if they're overdoing, it's all about overdoing it. That's why they need to get rid of the gold standard, because they want to overdo things, and they want to control. When you control money, when you control monetary policy, when you control that, you control the world. You know what I'm saying? So they wanted to get rid of the gold standard because they couldn't control gold. You can't control it. So basically, yeah. So that's how it works. If you have a savings account with a 1.5 interest rate or 1.3, your money's still losing value by like 0.5%, or that's what they supposedly say. So you're doing better than others who just have their money sitting in their bank account, or sitting, in stuff like that. So you're doing better than most people, right? It literally does become worthless over time. Like, nobody uses the dollar anymore. The purchasing power of the dollar is literally nothing. You know what I'm saying? You know what people's stack of money consists of now? Hundreds. You know what I'm saying? The $100 note. That's it. So basically, you're already seeing it happen in front of your eyes. You know what I'm saying? Like, what you could buy in the store with $200 last year, you can't even buy that now. You got to pay $350 now for the same things you could have bought last year. You know what I'm saying? So with all this stuff that's going on with the quantitative easing, what the Fed is doing, we don't even know what's going to happen in 2 years from now, when it all re-kicks on us, when we start feeling that effects later. We don't know what's going to happen. So I'm just saying, you guys be careful out there, and I'm glad we can have this discussion. If you guys enjoy it, like, comment, and subscribe, and peace out.